morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? No fancy intro today. All system was shut down. No way of uploading videos, no way of uploading our mystery machine or anything like that. Complete disaster. So I've had to throw this together rather hastily, but that shouldn't reflect on the show itself. So how are we all doing? Just to let you know, it looks like we're about to get a new construction minister. At least we are, according to the Building Magazine. There you are. That's the lady in question. I can tell you her name is Sarah Jones. Expected to be named construction minister later this week as the new Labour government begins to finalise ministerial briefs. She's the MP for Croydon West, responsible for industry and decarbonisation during her years in the shadow cabinet. Apparently, the construction briefing government is usually one of a number handled by a junior minister. Brilliant. And it involves co-chairing the Construction Leadership Council. Did not know that, but there you are. That's likely to be our brand new construction minister. Sarah, if you're watching, and why wouldn't you be? Because if you're about to land the top job in construction, you kind of need to be here. If you are going to take on this role, can I suggest that you rent your PPE, rent your high vis and your hard hat and your boots? It's based on previous experience. You lot don't stick around for too long. Let's just have a quick look over in the chat. Good morning to Steve Williamson. I've already said good morning, but he says nice cap. Yeah, I must admit, I used to shy away from these ones with a high front. Kind of like it. I think they kind of offset the beard for some reason. I don't know quite why that is. And Jim Turner is with us as well. Going to say some good mornings. Good morning on this damp and dismal Tuesday. Chris, I was up at 6 o'clock this morning. I'm not boasting because I'm sure most of you were up way earlier than I was. Bright sunshine. Made the missus a cup of coffee, fed the dogs, looked out the window, pissing down. Absolutely chucking it down. Gary Muirhead is here as well. Steve Williamson is here. Dan Cullen was first off the mark, and he's already guessing on our mystery machine. He reckons a PC-80 from Komatsu. It's not one of those. Bit more obscure today, I can tell you that. Now, it is potentially unpopular opinion time. Not that I've ever shied away from that in the past. For quite some time now, I've had a suspicion that the bias against Chinese excavator brands runs a little deeper than just a concern over the availability of spare parts. Yesterday, I was speaking via email to someone in this industry who I admire enormously, and he said precisely the same thing. So I did what I always do at times like these. I fired up the video camera and produced a short film. I'm going to play you that film now because I think there are several discussion points to be had. So here's the film, and I apologise for my scruffy appearance. I did this one in a bit of a hurry, but this is the video. Are we guilty, deliberately or otherwise, of industrial racism in our treatment? Are we guilty, deliberately or otherwise, of industrial racism in our treatment of Chinese equipment brands like Lugong, Sany, Sunwald, and XCMG? Now look, I understand the concerns over alleged dumping of low-cost excavators in the UK market, and domestic manufacturers should be protected from unfair competition. I can also understand why a plant hirer or contractor might analyse all the equipment on offer and their respective features and benefits and still opt for a European, Japanese or Korean brand. What's harder to understand, however, is the dismissal of manufacturers and their equipment based purely on its country of origin. It strikes me that this is not just a quality issue. XCMG is the third largest equipment manufacturer in the entire world. Sany is the fifth. Those brands didn't overtake the likes of Volvo, Hitachi, Liebherr, Doosan and Hyundai with poor quality machines. Our dismissal of people based on the colour of their skin or their country of origin creates division, fuels conflict and quite possibly denies us potentially life-affirming friendships. Our dismissal of excavators purely because they were built in China potentially robs us of access to innovation that could just improve or enhance our business. So, given that this is a pretty contentious subject, let me be clear. I'm not working on behalf of the Chinese government. I'm not a spy of any kind, nor am I working on behalf of any of the brands that I mentioned in that short film. But I do genuinely wonder if the anti-Chinese sentiment expressed by many in this sector is down to the quality of the machines or whether it's merely an expression of distrust for a foreign nation. Now, obviously, that's not for me to decide. I don't buy machines, so I don't actually need to worry about that. But I would welcome your input, and I can tell you. There we are. Steve Williamson has already said. Good point. Thank you very much indeed, Steve. There's another thing to consider here, which occurred to me pretty much as I was coming on air. Thanks to the likes of London Mayor Sadiq Khan, we now have these ultra low emission zones up and down the country. Now, as an asthmatic, I prefer to breathe clean air, and I'd certainly like my children and my grandchildren to do likewise. But this has had a negative side effect. There was a time when an entrepreneurial young person leaving school or college could set themselves up in business with an old banger of an excavator. Smoked a bit, required a lot of constant maintenance, but that old banger was the starting point of many companies that went on to become hugely successful. I'm sure you could name a few. But because of our shift towards all things environmental, that old banger is no longer an option. But a low-cost Chinese import might provide the perfect first step onto the industry ladder. Do we really want to jeopardize that with anti-Chinese industrial racism? And have I gone too far in calling it industrial racism? Over to you. Are we treating Chinese manufacturers unfairly? Mark Whiting has just turned up, and Steve Williamson says, yes, absolutely. I have a sticker on the Volvo, made in Korea. Yeah. And so here's the thing. Why is it? Listen, I realise that they are unquestionably a superpower, potentially the biggest superpower now. I don't actually know, but they are unquestionably a superpower. But why this anti-Chinese sentiment? Why? We don't seem to have the same thoughts and fears over the Japanese or the Koreans. Why the Chinese? Ken Hatcher has just arrived. There we are. Chris Ford says, looking back in history, the Chinese have always been in front of most of the world. Who invented explosives? Well, indeed. I'm going to say a very quick good morning to Rockbusters Inc. over on Instagram. Good morning to you. Thank you very much indeed for being here. And he also says, I think you're right. Thank you very much indeed. One other thing, the person that I was speaking to, and I'm not going to name names, but the person I was speaking to said that they were at an event earlier, I think earlier this year or earlier this month, and they were talking about the Chinese manufacturers. And somebody actually said on stage, they said that if the Chinese were actually to unleash their capabilities in electric machines, they would own the market. They would own the market. Food for thought. Ken Hatcher has just joined us. Good morning to you, Ken. Rockbusters Inc. I see that all the time, more so in the US. I'd be interested to get the US perspective on this because obviously I think you guys are ahead of us in terms of levying tariffs against the Chinese. We've been a bit tardy. In fact, we're still investigating over here. But I'd be interested to get your take on that. Dan says, I see nothing wrong with them as you sit on a seat and you get the job done too. Yeah. Now, let me just wind back and say at the very outset of that film, you know, I understand the concern of the likes of JCB about their domestic market and the fact that they are possibly subject to unfair competition. You know, machines being subsidised potentially by the Chinese government and therefore being that they can sell them a lot cheaper. I fully understand that, and I do think that JCB are well within their rights to claim that they are being unfairly competed against. 100%. Totally agree with that. But it is, you know, these things are capitalism driven. You know, you pay your money, you take your choice. Should you be prevented from having, you know, if somebody is able to provide you with a low cost excavator, should you not be able to buy a low cost excavator? Rockbusters Inc. Yes, 25% on anything made in China. They're not messing about in the States, are they? 25%. Steve says, I personally think it's due to the past, the old school Chinese shite talk. But now there is social media and people seeing the web, you'd be shocked on all the great things made in China. Yeah. Yeah, and anybody want to give that up? Do you want to give that up? Where does most of the plumbing for that come from? China. And apparently that 25% was brought in by Mr. Trump, he of the partially missing ear. Yes, Mr. Trump. I'm just going to leave that one floating there, to be perfectly honest with you. So, yes, let's continue. Lots of... Dan Cullen says, if it's a little cheaper to get a machine, get the same higher price and reliable. Yeah. I mean, let's face it, that is very much the plant hire rental business, isn't it? buy them as cheap as you can, rent them for as high as you can. That's the way the model works. Yeah. So, should we press on? I think we probably should. Let's have a spot of this. So yes, there you are. Dan Cullen rightly says everything in your house comes from China. We don't. What is it? We don't get excited about being able to buy a cheaper telly or a cheaper, well, not an iPhone because iPhones are far from bloody cheap, but cheaper bits and pieces that are made in China. Well, why are excavators different? Why is that? I wonder. Somebody's just said DGD264 says so. Hi. So, hi back. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Don't know where you are in the world, but thank you very much indeed for taking part. We appreciate your presence. Yes, it is Tuesday, the 16th of July. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition. In today's show, what are you doing on the 27th of July? What are you doing on the 27th of July? And can I suggest a trip to Scotland? That'll become clear in a second. JCB's new tags will help you track your assets. We're out on site with the magnificent Magni, and we're back at Hillhead to check out the SMT GB stand. Plus, there's another thing I want to show you at the end of the show. It's more about you than it is about me. I'll get to that. But before we get to all of that, there is the small matter of today's mystery machine. And I can tell you, we've already had a couple of guesses, even though nobody's seen it yet, none of which are even close. So here we go. Yeah, mystery machine for today. Looks like that. Oh, yeah. Well, I'll tell you now, if anybody gets it from that picture alone, I will personally hand them the prize for this month. Doesn't tell you too much, does it? But if anyone's got any clues on that, I'd love to hear from you. While you're trying to figure that out, let me remind you very, very quickly of today's question of the day. Yeah. The question of the day today is one of mine, and it is this. What is the worst place you have ever been? Now, I have to admit, once I started thinking about this, I slowly began to draw up quite a long list. Hull and Grimsby would be quite high on that list. Not a big fan of Blackpool either, although in its defence, I've only ever been there during the winter when I'm sure it's not at its best. But far and away, the worst place I've been, sorry if anybody is watching from here, Gibraltar. Gibraltar, yeah. When Mrs. Demolition News and I are cruising around the mid, haven't done that since COVID hit, but hopefully we'll be doing that again at some point in the near future. We make a point of getting off the ship at every single port, without fail, even if we've been there before. We have a mooch about, eat some local food. She drinks the local wine. We do a bit of shopping. Absolutely fantastic. There is one exception. If we dock at Gibraltar, we both stay on board. Mainly, funnily enough, I mean, I've already mentioned my slight concern about Blackpool. Gibraltar, kind of like Blackpool when it's closed, but with monkeys. Probably apes, actually, but you get my point. So, what about you? What is the worst place you've ever been? And if anybody says the London Stadium, I'd probably agree with you on that as well. So let me go back to the mystery machine, which looks currently like this. And we've had a couple of suggestions here. What have we got? Gary Muirhead is going for the Volvo BL71. Tis not. Steve Williamson says the Cat 973 tracked shovel. It's not one of those either. So let me show you just a smidgen more, shall we? There we are. Is that colour a clue? Is that colour a clue? We'll find out in just a moment. Onward. So, what are you up to on the 27th of July? Nothing? Then can I suggest that you consider popping along to this?
It's easy to fall in love. When you fall in love, you know you're done. You got easy eyes to hunt in the world above. Needs your blood in the cold veins of the richest man. He'll pay you way to steal a hand. There ain't no easy way. No, there ain't no easy way out. There ain't no easy way. No, there ain't no easy way out. There ain't no easy way. No, there ain't no easy way out.
Yeah. Now, purely by a coincidence, I received an email this morning. In addition to all the stuff that was listed in that film, I can tell you that Georgina Williams will be there. She used to be the JCB Digger girl. She's now the Happy Digger for some reason. I won't dwell on that. But she's actually bringing with her the JCB dual drive backhoe loader, which is making its Scottish debut at that very event. So if you are free on the 27th of July and can get yourself to Bonnie, Scotland, and why the hell would you not? I would highly recommend a trip along to the Scottish Plant Operator Challenge event, which, as you know, started kind of out of adversity and has gone on to become an absolutely top-notch event. So congratulations to all of the people at the SPOA, Callum McIntosh, and all of his team. So I've mentioned JCB. I'll come back to JCB in just a moment, but we do need to address our mystery machine. That was where we left it. Steve Williamson suggesting a Cat 973. Jim Turner has said a Takuchi mini loading shovel. It's not one of those. Gary Muirhead, a Red Rock TH350 telehandler. It's not. It's not an O&K L20 shovel. It's not an O&K L7 shovel either. So let me show you a bit more. There you are. That's what you're looking at. If you've got any clues on that. Going back to our question of the day, which is, what is the worst place that you've been? I tell you what, I'll come back to that in just a moment. We've had more guesses. I can tell you, save you the trouble, Dan. It's not an O&K of any kind. I'll make life easier for you, and it's not a Manitou either. But good guess. Yes. What was I saying? Yes, I know what I was saying about the question of the day, which was, what is the worst place that you've been? Mick Norton says, Eastleigh Township in Nairobi, Kenya in 1979. It made Beirut look like Pontins. I thought Pontins looked like Beirut, to be perfectly honest, but that's a whole other story. Going back to the mystery machine, Dan Cullen is suggesting it could be a Kubota RO90. It is not one of those either. Keep the guesses coming. As you will, I'm sure, remember, I actually walked away with 3 points yesterday. I'd quite like to do the same again today. So, you better work a bit harder. We'll be back. I've already mentioned JCB once. I'm going to mention them again in a minute.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
So, asset tags, so you can track where your goods are. JCB have got them.
It's easy to fall in love. When you fall in love, you know you're done. You got easy eyes to hunt in the world above. Needs your blood in the cold veins of the richest man. He'll pay you way to steal a hand. There ain't no easy way. No, there ain't no easy way out. There ain't no easy way. No, there ain't no easy way out. There ain't no easy way. No, there ain't no easy way out. There ain't no easy way. No, there ain't no easy way out. There ain't no easy way. No, there ain't no easy way out. There ain't no easy way. No, there ain't no easy way out. There ain't no easy way. No, there ain't no easy way out. There ain't no easy way. No, there ain't no easy way out. There ain't no easy way. No, there ain't no easy way out. There ain't no easy way. No, there ain't no easy way out. There ain't no easy way. No, there ain't no easy way out. There ain't no easy way. No, there ain't no easy way out. There ain't no easy way. No, there ain't no easy way out. There ain't no easy way. No, there ain't no e
funnily enough, I've actually got some Apple tags, the sticky ones that you put on your, I don't know, your keys or your laptop or whatever. Got a couple here in a box. Had them for about 6 months. Never been out of the box. Probably means I can find the box really easily, but yeah, that was a waste of bloody time. That was. Now I'm going to go back to our mystery machine, which looks like this. We had guesses of Manitou. We've got another one for Manitou. I'll tell you now, it's not a Manitou. It's not a Manitou 628 or a Manitou of any other kind. A Manitou MLT 635V Plus Elite. Good Lord. Is that really a machine? That's a mouthful. But it's not one of those. It's not a Staffer T3650. Not a Manitou at all. Still not a Manitou, not a Kubota either. Ken Hatcher says, I've got Apple trackers as well. Yeah, I thought they were a fantastic idea because I am forever leaving stuff behind. The one thing I do, I've got my laptop and my phone linked, and I've got my watch linked as well. Problem with it is, you go to, for example, you go to an exhibition, you leave the hotel or your digs or whatever it might be, you get 100 yards up the road and it says, you've forgotten your laptop. Yeah, I know. Did it on purpose. Got this from, let me take that away for just a moment. As discussed yesterday, the Mineral Products Association, safequarry.com, issued a safety alert on a near miss that happened yesterday. Why can't the UK construction sector mirror this efficiency? Mick, I did see your message, and I understand that you sent me an email. Obviously, can't look at it right now, but I will have a proper look at that. But yeah, they've had a near miss. They've reported it and broadcast it in 24 hours. And that is how it's supposed to be done. Just for the record. Now going back to not mystery machine. Where are we? Yeah. Question of the day. Chris Ford says, the toilets in a certain club that will remain nameless. I wouldn't even let my dog shit on the floor there. I'll leave the rest to your imagination. All I would say on that, Chris, is that's not exactly what I meant when I said, what is the worst place you've been? Been. But well done. We've got another guess on the mystery machine, which is Gary Muirhead going for the Bobcat TL 3870HF. Not one of those. Dan Cullen, it's not a Schaefer 3650 SLT. None of those things. Let me show you a bit more. There you are. I mean, I think you've kind of figured out what type of machine it is, but I need names and I need nomenclatures. Names and numbers, if you like. Make a model, please, on the mystery machine. I'll be right back after this. A quick good morning to Steve Brown Official over on Instagram. I don't know who Steve Brown is, but he's official apparently. But good morning, Steve. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Yes, Magni. Let me just go over to the chat very quickly before we go ahead with any of that. What have we got? Dan is suggesting that our mystery machine could be a Yanmar V80. It's not. Chris Ford going for a Wacker Neuson WL96. It's neither of those either. Oh, those 3 points are so close now, I can almost taste them. Don't know how you taste points, but you get the point. Magni, the telehandler people. Have a look.
My name is Mike Rozier, and I am with Rozier Construction Company. And this project, we've got forklift, we've got scissor lift, we've got man lift, and we've got boom truck. This is the first project that we've used a piece of equipment by Magni. Taylor is a distributor for them out of Louisville, Mississippi, and this is the new product to this area. And we decided, hey, let's give it a try. Let's see how it works. Let's, how we can apply it on this job. I'm gonna tell you, it is top notch. Anybody that's in the steel business, if you would just be open-minded enough to say, hey, I want to try it one time, I think it will sell itself. Yeah, we would absolutely be using this machine on another project of this size now, or maybe even a little smaller. It is, the bigger the project, I think, the better this machine is. To me, one of the key benefits of this machine is you've got a forklift and you've got a crane all in one. Very simple to go from a set of forks to your head that's got the winch and the cable on it. Anybody that operates this would need some type of training for a short while, and then the more you operate it, the more comfortable you're going to be with it. You've got 2 joysticks, and those 2 joysticks does everything you need. We had a structural steel guy on this site erecting the structural steel in our office just last week, and it was the first one he'd seen. And I told him, I said, get up and sit down and look at it. He got off of it, and just what little bit of time he spent there, he said, I believe I could get used to this real quick. The capacity of this piece of equipment is 13,000 pounds, and the reach is 68 feet. So it has done everything we've asked it to do out here on.
Love the accent. Good old boy right there. Going back to the mystery machine, which currently looks like this, we've got Steve Williamson saying it's a Manitou 601 rotator, not a Manitou of any kind, so that doesn't count either. Magni 601 rotator. Do you honestly think I'd give the game away by showing it to you as well? It's not one of those either. And Dan Cullen saying a Shandong WL20. It's not. Let me show you a bit more. There you are. That's a bit of back wheel. I think you know what type of machine you're looking at now, but I need a name and I need a model, if you would be so kind. I'll come back with something a little more serious in just a moment.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Now, I've got to be honest, having anything to do with Chelsea kind of brings me out in hives, which kind of shows you just how committed I am to all things mental health awareness. Take a look.
What's this? A spa retreat? Afternoon, lads. Time we had a little chat. Don't look so scared. I'm a football man like yourselves. I've run a mile in your boots, although in my day, they weren't so luminous. I was an angry player, you see. I've probably had more red cards than you've had birthday cards. My feelings would get the better of me. But the difference between back then and now is that when I'm feeling rubbish, I don't just bottle it up. I talk about it. It's serious stuff, lads. Because we got a problem. Problem with talking about how we're feeling. Us football fans don't talk about our emotions. We'd rather talk about football day in, day out. Who's going up? Who's going down? Who was the best defensive midfielder of the 90s? A hard man, sure, but with underrated skills. But we forget sometimes that we need to talk about other things too. So it's time we started. Right now. We're all teammates on the same side. Not just 11 of us on the pitch. I'm talking about the millions of fans up and down the country. It's your mates from home and from work, your neighbour, your family. They're all your teammates. And teammates look out for each other. They talk to each other. They listen to each other. And that could save a life. So next time you're with your mates, talk about football, sure. Talk about more than football too. Be a mate who listens. Pick up the phone. Send a text. If I can do it, lads, so can you. So let's get out there, eh? And let's talk more than football. There is one more thing. It's been emotional. Carry on, boys.
2 in 3 football fans suffered with their mental health. I realise it's changed a bit since I was going to West Ham on a regular basis, but that is mainly men. Mainly men. Give that some thought, people, would you? I'm going to go back to the mystery machine. We've had lots more guesses here. We've got, let me have a look, the Schaefer T3650 SLT. It's not one of those. It's not a Magni either. Not entirely sure what that is. No, no idea. Wacker Neuson WL95. It's not a Cat TL1255 either. It's not a Wacker Neuson 9080. Now somebody is on the right path. Dan Cullen, you are on the right path. You're not right, but you're in the ballpark. You're most definitely in the ballpark. Keep those guesses coming in. While you're doing that, I'm going to go back to our question of the day, which is, what is the worst place you've been? Question of the day. Ebbw Vale, says Jim Turner. At least I think it was. In the 90s, we were building a clothes shop on the edge of town. As we drove through, most places were boarded up. Very depressing. That was my thing about Blackpool. And I realise it's probably a whole lot different in the midst of summer, height of the season and everything else. But go there in the winter. Man alive. That is bleak. So bleak, in fact, it's got 2 syllables. Bleak. We've got one more proper film to show you, and then I want to show you something else. So we'll be right back after this. Hillhead is starting to feel like a distant memory now, but we're going to pop back there in the company of the fine folks at Volvo themselves.
We're on the Volvo stand at Hillhead 2024, and over here, the company is showing off its latest range of all-electric equipment. But behind me, the EC230E, which you can see, but you might not be able to hear. But over there, the EC350EL, which is a hybrid machine. On-highway trucks are not really my kind of thing, but I have to say, that's very smart. But it's nowhere near as smart as this, the EC500, one of the latest generation excavators that Volvo have brought to the market. But over here, a bucket that has been produced by Miller in conjunction with the Lighthouse Club to raise money for a very, very important construction equipment charity.
Yeah, quick spin around the SMT GB stand. Thank you for having us, people. Not sure you knew you were having us, to be honest, because we didn't get involved too much, but there you are. Now, Dan Cullen is on a bit of a Wiedemann kick. He's already narrowed it down to, let me get to the right one. He's narrowed it down to the 9080. It's not one of those. It's not the 5080. It's not the 2080, and it's not the 4080 either. But you're in the right ballpark. Yeah, Steve Williamson saying about Volvo, lovely bits of kit. They certainly are. That's pretty much the main part of the show done, which means that I feel like I've bagged 3 points here, but I am going to extend the show just a little bit. Taught myself last night to do a thing with video, and in order to test my ability to do the thing, I produced a video using the thing. You'll see it in just a moment. That means we've got 2 minutes and 16 seconds after I press the go button on this, in which somebody needs to guess the mystery machine, or I've got another 3 points. But people, this is kind of about you. quite pleased with that. Don't use it very often, but I'm quite pleased with that. Took me about an hour, that did. Because my wife watches rubbish on the telly. She's not here. I can get away with it. Let's have a look. Peter McKenna, very kind of you, Peter. Thank you very much indeed. Good morning, by the way. Well, that's amazing. Well done. And look where you are, Mark. You're a star. Well, I would use that very, very sparingly. But yeah, I have to say, it's come a long, long way, hasn't it? Peter says, so glad you did. Wouldn't have met such wonderful people at Plantworks. There you go. Mick Norton says, good video by Vinnie Jones. Sadly, I won't be losing any sleep over prima donna footballers on 300 grand a week claiming mental health issues. I totally agree, although I think obviously the aim of that was to talk about football fans rather than football players. Jim Turner says, my mate Josh at work says Hackney. Says he's never felt so unsafe in his life. Yeah, Hackney is special. Hackney is special. I've made a mistake. I played that. Well, before I started to play that film, I had the points in the bag for the Mystery Machine. I don't any longer because at 10:37, Steve Williamson got the right answer, and at 10:39, Dan Cullen repeated that answer, and the correct answer is that it is a Wiedemann 9580T, and I can prove it. There you are. So Steve Williamson, I can sense unpleasantness brewing here because Dan Cullen once again has set us on the right path, and Steve has come along on the blind side, run up on the inside and just gone, I'll take those points. Thank you very much. So, Steve, congratulations. Commiserations to Dan. You were 2 minutes too slow, but you did actually set the thing on the right path. The mental health issue they have now is how to spend 300 grand a week. I've got a theory on that. I mean, I watch quite a bit of football, obviously watch most of the games of the Euros. Noticed how many players have got an excessive, I mean, I've got a couple of tattoos. Quite like a tattoo. Prefer a tattoo on a woman, if I'm being completely honest. That's a whole personal taste thing. But I have no issue with tattoos. But footballers these days have an excessive amount of tattoos. And I have a theory on that. They go to work, they go training, they do a couple of hours training, they get a bit of physio, they're checked over, they're fed and watered, they probably have their bottoms wiped by somebody who does it in the right way. And then they have nothing to do for the rest of the day. So what do? I think they either go and have a silly haircut. Quite a few of them have got those. Or they go and get a tattoo. Or another tattoo. Or they extend the tattoo they've already got. That's my feeling on it. Peter McKenna says, I missed out. I know someone that has one. I don't remember the last time I saw a Wiedemann machine. Again, I put you on the path, said Dan Cullen, who's being remarkably cheery about the fact that he's just missed out on the points again. So Steve Williamson, let me have a look. He's got 3, 6, 9, 12. Steve Williamson is on 15 points. And I can tell you, let's have a look. 3, 6. His nearest competitor is still Dan Cullen, but he is only on 6 points. I have a feeling that if it goes on much longer, Steve Williamson's lead will soon be unassailable. So somebody needs to come up. I can already tell you, I've got tomorrow's Mystery Machine already standing by. Hopefully this might trip Steve up because we don't want him winning it halfway through the month. There will be no point in that. Peter McKenna says, mental health, sod the lighthouse and his man club is the way forward. Look it up on Google and YouTube. I went to my first session last night. They are amazing. Funnily enough, I've got a friend who goes. He's based down in Sussex. Had his issues over the years, and has been to Andy's Man Club to the point where he is planning to start his own branch of Andy's Man Club. I think that it works almost like a franchise kind of deal, and he's planning to start one here, a bit closer to where I am. Love to pop along, but there's not one very close at the moment. The winner picks the mystery machines for the next month. Yeah, that's a thought. It saved me having to think about it, but no, we've, as I say, we're continuing with that one. Excuse me. One thing I will remind you of: hopefully by the 27th of this month, I will have received my balls for me to number and then to do the draw for our Excavator World Cup that we're planning to do in basically the whole of August and possibly into September as well, because it's going to be quite a long one. I think the first round is 16 games, followed by 8 games, followed by 4 games, followed by 2 games, and then the final. So it's going to be quite a long thing. It's going to take us the best part of a month, I think. Possibly slightly more. So if you fancy being part of that, make sure you stick around. We are going to rest our question of the day. I don't actually know how big these balls are. So I've got a box sat fairly close to me. I've got a bowl in the kitchen as well. I'd quite like to put them in the bowl so you can see through the bowl. You can actually see me doing the draw to make sure it's all kosher and above board. But I've got a funny feeling the balls will be too big for the bowl. We shall see. When they pitch up, we'll let you know. So that pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. Congratulations once again to Mr. Williamson. I'm going to go back to the chat very quickly. Jim Turner says, that's easy. Take 50k a week for yourself and buy 5. Buy to let 200 grand homes, rent them out, pay your workforce and overheads, then give the rest to charity, or set your own charities up and do good with the weekly equivalent of a lottery win. Well, that's what I'd do. Yeah, if only you were a centre forward for Man City, eh? If only you were. Dan Cullen says, only for me, Steve be lost. He has faster Google. I think he may do. I'm starting to wonder if maybe one or two of you have actually got a phone or a device to watch the show on, and a separate one so you can look stuff up. Starting to suspect that might be the case. So lots to talk about. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat to see what you're all saying today. If you can't stick around, please look after yourself. Stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. I hope to see you again very, very soon. Tomorrow, ideally. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I will be back with the Craic immediately after this. Now, I'll tell you now, before I start to try and play the music, one of the issues that we were having earlier, there were 2 issues, actually. There was one which was uploading videos, and there was one that was playing music. They've resolved the video bit. Hopefully, they've resolved the music bit as well. Seems okay. So, good morning, everyone. Let's have a look. Comments. No idea what that's all about, but it's somebody over. Well, I think that might actually be, even though it's quite clearly an advert or something like that. It's our first viewer. I mean, we are only 3 shows in, and I've not told anyone we're doing it. That was our first comment over on Twitch. We are officially on Twitch. We've had our first comment. Thank you. Even though it's clearly an ad, and I don't want any part of it. Mick Norton says, in the early 1920s, my late dad played for Caerphilly United as a professional in the Old Welsh League and was paid the princely amount of 15 shillings 75p a week. At the time, the general strike, it kept him, his parents and his siblings afloat. Wow. Does Caerphilly United still exist, I wonder? And I bet their wages have gone up just a smidge. Peter McKenna says, sorry I'm late, had a lie-in. An agency that's extremely well known sent me a job yesterday. I filled out their form for a local job. When we spoke, he asked about my false leg. Then I got totally ignored. Shitbags. Shitbags. Listen, we've been down this path before, and I know we've talked about people being concerned about the ability to get in and out of machines, and I understand all of that, and health and safety and everything else. That doesn't stop you having the common decency to pick the phone up and say, no, not on this occasion. That's just common decency, isn't it? Question of the day. Worst place you've ever been? The Bronx. Drove through in a cab. That was enough for me. Back in the day, let me think. This would have been 1989. 1989. I didn't do it. So my sister-in-law and her then boyfriend went to the States for a year. They literally travelled from state to state. We actually met up with them Christmas 1989 in New Orleans. But I think they did 30 states over the course of about a year. And one of the places they went to was New York. And at that time, you could you could take a bus tour of the Bronx, and you did it in an armored coach. And that is absolutely true. I'd love to say I was winding you up on that. That's absolutely true. And they did it, and they said it was not pleasant. And then, funnily enough, one of the people responsible for fixing the Bronx and other parts of New York, Rudy Giuliani. Whatever happened to him? Oh yeah, I remember what happened to him. He went mad. He went completely barking mad. Right, let's go back to the beginning of the chat. Sorry, that's Peter McKenna says a friend of mine is from the Bronx. He came over here, said he'd gladly move here now with how quiet it is. Well, compared to the Bronx, I'm sure that's the case. Jim Turner, I think I could spend 300 grand a week and still be skint. Mind you, I'd have a lot of shiny yellow metal. Yes, I bet you would. Bet you would. So, going to go back to the point that I raised at the beginning of the show, which was what I termed, it's my term. Anybody else uses it, please report them to me, because I don't have a copyright. But yeah, industrial racism. Why is it we've taken so much against the Chinese? And I will reiterate that I've been here before. You know, I joined the industry back end of the 80s when the first of the Japanese machines started to arrive, and there was a lot of suspicion and contention about the Japanese machines. Cabs too small. They were suspect in terms of rust. Could you get spare parts and so on down the line? But it was, at least to my memory, it was purely based on practicality. You know, is this a Japanese cab, and therefore does that mean that a proper size European is going to be operating like a T-Rex because there's not enough room to use his elbows? So that was one thing. But you know, we got past that, and obviously Hitachi and Komatsu went on to do great things. We then had the Koreans. The Koreans did exactly the same thing. They arrived. We had the same concerns about them: spare parts, rust, too small, all of the things. But we got past that. The Chinese, our take on the Chinese feels very, very different, and it does feel. And again, I don't think the Chinese government helps with its ways, but it feels like we've gone further with the Chinese. This is not just an objection to their machines; it's an objection to their country of origin. Is that sensible? Is that sensible? And going back to the point I made about, you know, yes, I'm well aware of the fact that they are, or some of them have been, buying market share. But if you are in the business of buying low-cost machines, you know, if you're starting up in business, or if you just need something to fill a gap, or whatever it might be, should you be deprived? I'm going to answer Peter McKenna. I've got a button to press. The question of the day, Peter, is quite simply, what is the worst place you've ever been? That is the question of the day. I'd love to get your thoughts on the Chinese thing. I'm going to get Peter's point there as well. Mick Norton says, question of the day, Port Moresby in Papua New Guinea in 1971 was an unforgettable and the hairiest Saturday night out I've ever experienced. I think we need to know more about that. Shall I tell you a quick story? Yeah, we've got time. We're all friends together. So I met my wife at work. We worked in the same office and everything else. You can fill in the gaps. That's exactly how it all worked out. Anyway, so we went off on holiday together, and we went to Portugal. We both had spare holiday left. So we went off to Portugal. 2 nights, I guess, into the holiday, and there was a nightclub literally underneath our hotel. Very smart hotel, because we got it on the the equivalent of lastminute.com before that had even been thought of. So there was a nightclub below. So we went along, and we've had a few drinks because we both used to a fairly professional level. And there was a guy, a little skinny, weaselly looking guy, dancing in a really funny way. There was a lot of arms, and so we were sat there giggling to ourselves at just how ridiculous this small weaselly man looked. Anyway, having had a few beers, I decided to go off to the loo. Went to the loo. Stood there doing what needed to be done, looking in a mirror, and over my shoulder I see little Weasley man coming towards me, and he's clearly pretty upset. But I mean, I'm not big. I'm 5'10" in my stocking feet, but I thought, well, this ain't going to be a problem. So I turned around, sort of quickly tucked away the undercarriage, turned around and thought, okay, if this is going to go on, you ain't going out of here. You're going out of here feet first, fella, I thought. At which point, the door opened and two of the biggest guys I've ever seen walked in behind him. And do you know the scariest thing? He looked at me, and he knew these guys were behind him rather, and he just went, and the two walked out. I don't know who he was, but he had big guys doing his bidding. We left shortly afterwards. Wouldn't say it was the worst place I've ever been, because it was absolutely lovely, apart from that one little encounter. Let's have a look. Callum McIntosh has joined us. We need to catch up on this. Busy morning. Not a problem at all. I'm sure you've got a lot on your plate at the moment, Callum. But what I would say is watch the first 10 minutes, because most of it is aimed at you. There you are. You can skip the rest. I mean, I'd prefer you didn't, but question of the day. Steve Williamson says, work on the Brent oil field on two of the rigs. Well, it was hell. Old tin can in the middle of the sea. Old and so run down, it was like a prison in the sea. Would never recommend some of the old platforms in the North Sea. I can understand that. And I mean, I spent a day, literally a day, on a drilling rig. And I mean, the food was really good. Lots of banter and everything else. But I did, by the time I was actually picked up and helicoptered back to dry land again, I was actually thinking, not sure I'd want to spend a whole heap of time on that. It does feel very, very remote, doesn't it? Jim Turner says, yes, Chris, you're right, but after I bought my estate, ACO Super Dozer, Lima 2400, ONK 120, Cat 983, Cat 666, loads of other gear, I wouldn't need 300 grand a week, so any profit would be just ploughed into charity. See, there's a man that deserves 300 grand a week. I've only ever been mainly in the UK, so it's a UK city that my story is from. I was in Nottingham. You don't even need to go any further. I was in Nottingham, parked on the industrial estate in my truck. Nottingham, by the way, is a lovely place. In the middle of the night, a car with two lads crashed into the back of my truck, decapitating both on impact. Well, I didn't see that outcome coming. Oh, that's awful. Good grief. Good grief. Callum McIntosh, worst place I've ever been, South Uist. I've visited many places in the world, but I never want to return there. Wow. Steve Williamson says, Jesus, Peter. Yeah, I honestly didn't see that as the outcome. Let's have a look. We had no TV or internet or phones for 3 days. See, I could put up with a lot. So long as I've got Wi-Fi, I'm okay. Laptop and a Wi-Fi and a bit of Wi-Fi, I'm a happy bunny. You know, you put me in a tinker's cottage in the middle of the Highlands, that'd be fine, not a problem at all. But take that away, no TV, no internet, and no phone. Oh no, no, I'm out, as they say on Dragon's Den. Is there anything else we need to cover before we get back to? No, I think that pretty much covers it. That will probably do us for the day. We'll be back tomorrow, 10 a.m. as per usual. Hopefully, I'll have started to draw up the rules and regulations for our Excavator World Cup. And I did say yesterday I was going to do a podcast on physical health rather than mental health. Well, because of all things industrial racism, didn't get around to it, so I may do that today. I've got a bit of running around, but I may do that. Mick Norton says, question of the day, Churchill Airfield in the Hudson Bay in 1970. Sub-zero, 3 in the morning, polar bears and permanent frost. Heaven. Listen, it's each to their own. I don't want to be where there are polar bears. I like to look at them from a distance, and I love the fact that they exist, but I don't want to be near them. Thank you very much. My dream destination is out in the middle of nowhere with my dog and my wife, says Peter McKenna. Yeah, me too. Let me be clear. I don't mean your dog and your wife. I mean with my dogs, plural, and my wife. That is absolutely right. Question of the day, Falls Road in Belfast. Do you know, the funny thing is, I did some work in Belfast a couple of times and had to go down Falls Road. Obviously, in advance of going there, terrified. Wasn't a bundle of laughs, but got to the hotel and thought, actually, it's not so bad. Not so bad. But that was, I don't know, 88, 89. Worst of the trouble's over and done with at that point. So, yeah. Mick Norton says, why does he say permafrost? Did we not say that before? Peter McKenna says, I'm struggling again with my mental health. You guys are appreciated. Peter, you've got my number. If you need it, give me a call. I am not a mental health practitioner, but I have been there. So if you need a chat, you know where to find me. Simple as. I know you've got friends in the group, particularly Dan Cullen, I know. So pick the phone up, have a chat, get it off your chest, whatever it is that's bothering you. Don't bottle it up. You saw what Vinnie Jones said. I wouldn't normally recommend that you listen to Vinnie Jones. Terrible footballer, even worse actor, but you know, he did have a lot of things right to say in that. It's good to talk, says Steve. Yeah, it certainly is. Why do you think I turn up and do this every day? This is therapy. This is genuinely right, people. That is a whole hour. Go forth, go and have your day, would you? But do me a favour, would you? Come back tomorrow, but we'll do more of the same, only with a completely different subject and a different mystery machine and a different question of the day. Peter McKenna says, it's okay to talk. Yes, it is okay to talk. It's not okay to talk quite as much as my wife does, which is incessant, but that's a whole other story. I'll bore you with that another time. Everybody, go have your day, would you? I'll see you all very soon. Take care.